While Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his warnings that any failure by Hezbollah to comply with the ceasefire terms would lead to an intensive war. In his first interview since the Lebanon ceasefire, Netanyahu described the Lebanon ceasefire as potentially brief, stating that Israel enforced it on its first day. Netanyahu said that he had given the Israel Defense Forces instructions that in the case of a massive violation of the agreement, the response would extend beyond surgical operations like the ones they're doing now. Lead India's Jessica Taneja joins us with more on the story now. Jessica, with repeated breaches of the ceasefire reportedly by both Israel and Hezbollah, will the current ceasefire last even the 60 days that it is supposed to?
That's correct, Tanvi, and that's the question on everyone's mind. For how long will it hold? It's barely been a day, and we've already seen Israeli strikes towards South Lebanon, and also issuing warnings of the Lebanese who are trying to return to the south. Of course, the border between Israel and Lebanon along the blue line. Now, there are several agreements that have been tried to reach in the past, but none of them materialized to the effect that this one did, while Biden's appointee for bringing this entire ceasefire deal into fruition for the last 1 week has been traveling to West Asia, and what was reached was the 13-point agreement between Israel and the Lebanese government, not taking into account or mentioning Hezbollah at all, with United States along with France being part of this tripartite agreement and overseeing that all of the agreements and the issues that have to be resolved and the mechanisms in place to ensure that there's complete cessation of hostilities in the region are to be implemented, particularly putting an enormous task ahead for the Lebanese army. Now, with the particular violations that you point out, for Israel, the explanation is simple. During the agreement and even before agreeing to this ceasefire deal, Israel had made it clear that it will hold the right to respond militarily if in case it sees any forms of violations. And it comes with the understanding of the United States, which again, according to the United States and Joe Biden himself, would be in accordance with the international law. So it's very difficult to sort of discern as to what Israel intends to do and whether this ceasefire deal will hold. Now, if you know, this has been backed on the same United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701 that was in 2006, that was able to put off a permanent all-out war that was witnessed during that time. And this has been the basis for the ceasefire agreement as well, but having more mechanisms in place and ensuring a greater role, not just for the Lebanese government, but also for the Lebanese military along the blue line, which is the contentious border between the two, Tanvi.
Okay, so would it then be wrong to expect full-scale hostilities to break out between Israel and Hezbollah sooner rather than later?
Well, these are uncertain times indeed, because the ambiguity surrounding what we mean by certain violations and the quote-unquote understanding with the US and in accordance with international law, it all runs in some form of obscurity given the kind of violence and the conflict situation escalating in West Asia. While we talk about a ceasefire deal with Lebanon, nothing has been reached when it comes to Gaza, and the military action in Gaza continues even today. So it is difficult to ascertain as to how there will be a deal that could in effect and practically implement the cessation of hostilities and bring about some peace in the region, not just for people who want to return to their homes, both from the Israelis who have been displaced, about 60,000 of them, but also for the Lebanese, and looking at then the Gaza region as well, where the demand for statehood, of course, still hangs in the balance, and we're not seeing any fruition in that direction, and hostilities in that region still continue. So the situation remains fragile, Tanvi, but another 60 days will be important to see, and the reason for that is because according to this ceasefire deal, the next 60 days the Israeli army is going to be replaced with the 10,000 Lebanese army personnel, along with the UNIFIL, which is the United Nations peacekeeping forces, about 10,000 of them, with United States and France overseeing operations and also helping the deeply underfunded Lebanese army, which does not have the capable resources, nor does it have the wherewithal to restrain Hezbollah from creating any violations for Israel to not attack in the region and not escalate any violence further.
Okay, we leave it here. Thank you very much, Jessica Taneja, for that analysis on the ceasefire violations reportedly by both Israel and Hezbollah.